do just that. We've got a lot to get into this morning. And we've got Kim Wright, founder and principal of Wright Strategies. Morning, Kim.
Good morning.
It's lovely here in the downtown, and I know eager for some great weather. And continuing on is DeVell Morrison, broker with Bosley Real Estate, 640 Toronto contributor as well. Unless you're stocked up with showings this weekend, hopefully you can enjoy the outdoors.
Yes, absolutely. I will be able to enjoy the outdoors for sure. Thanks for having me.
Although I guess that's not great to cancel showings and just tell people, hey, I'm sorry, the weather's too nice. We're going to move this showing to later in the summer when it's a little less nice.
No, it just doesn't happen. But unfortunately, we're in this buyer's market without a lot of buyers. So I don't actually have a lot of showing booked.
Oh, we got to fix. Yeah, I'm seeing the condo stories are quite concerning. And it feels like we're in a bit of a bad cycle. Put it that way. We need to fix this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with this story, and I was surprised by it, and every couple weeks it feels like, Kim, I'll start with you, there's a change into how the redeveloped Ontario Place is going to look, but it's in the Toronto Star this morning, David Ryder writing about it, that the province has seen the light and also seen an $800 million check that it would cost to build an underground parking lot at Exhibition Place. So now this could become an above ground parking lot instead. It would save them money. Is there anything here? So many people have been back and forth on the machinations of why this is happening, what it's going to cost, the transparency involved. It does make sense to me, but I also think probably a little more of an eyesore than we might have reasoned as well if you don't like staring at overground parking lots.
Yeah, there's a lot that's happening down in that whole Ontario Place exhibition grounds, that people are about to start going down to in a couple of weeks for the opening of the CNE. And full disclosure, I do some work with the CNE as their lobbyist. But what's interesting about this whole conversation as it continues to twist and turn, now it is about the parking and where do you put that parking. And for the CNE, for example, putting a big giant parking structure in the midst of the fairgrounds is a little problematic for getting people around. There's lots of different places and considerations that have to be looked at as they redevelop that entire area, that entire precinct. Frankly, even how you get around through Lakeshore Boulevard is challenging today, let alone anything else going into those grounds. So it is one of those things the Premier's going to have to wrap his head around. But the costs are huge, but ultimately you're going to have to build a place that is the gateway to Toronto at some point, and you might want it to look like a really nice place to do it.
Well, and I'll buy that, absolutely. And DeVell, you know this as well as anybody. Liberty Village, we're hearing more from residents as the summer chugs along that the parking lot that exists right now is all of Liberty Village. People leave their cars there on the street in a lot, and they go to Bud Stage, and they go to Ontario Place, and they go to BMO Field, and they're going to go to the X at the end of August. So for those residents alone, I got to think they'll welcome any kind of parking lot that takes the heat off of them. You can't move in that area on weekends.
Right. But I mean, I think the challenge right now is because they've closed off the parking for Ontario Place. That's why Liberty Village is having this influx and this issue. And so, of course, underground parking is too expensive to build. Like, talk to any developer in the city and they would have told you that. I don't think an above-ground parking structure that blocks the waterfront is a great idea either. But I also think we have to kind of go back a little bit and go, none of us wanted the spa in the first place. Keep it the way it was. Turn it into a park, bring in some food trucks, and call it a day. I don't think the appetite for construction in this city is just, we don't have the appetite for it anymore. We're tired. We're sick. Just leave it the way it is and stop digging stuff up.
Well, let me stay with you on that, because I would have made the case there wasn't tremendous demand for what ended up becoming Ripley's Aquarium. There wasn't tremendous demand. It was just an announcement. Oh, this site, we're going to put this right beside Rogers Center, right beside the CN Tower. Is that going to work? Is that the right spot? And, years later, we just accept it for what it is. I don't care who owns it. I don't. It's just a good place to take your family to. So, but to your point, yes, this controversy has been there about what Ontario Place should be. And at least we're talking about it. We did nothing but watch it just get decrepit for about 16 straight years, DeVell.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. But I still go back to, do we really need to have a spa down there? which I think most people would agree with me that we just simply don't need to have a spa. I mean, if you want to talk about an area for families and people to congregate, a park with food trucks, it's far less cheaper to build, and you could just keep the parking lot the way it is. And, therefore the people who live in Liberty Village wouldn't be impacted by the parking lot being closed for a number of years while they try to reconstruct it. I mean, it's just too much, right? On top of construction everywhere else in the city that's not coordinated.
Here's where I think they made the mistake, Kim. I wouldn't have even called it a spa. Here's the words I wouldn't use: luxury, spa, Austria. No offense to any Austrians listening right now, but I would have called it a water park, because there's water parks in Niagara Falls. It's a big attraction to take your kids to a water park. I would have called it a water park. And really, an indoor water park is something the city of Toronto does not have.
Is this your marketing spin, Greg?
Say again?
Is this your marketing spin, Greg?
For free tickets opening day? Sure it is. Absolutely it is.
So what I'll say is all of this has been very poorly managed for years. This goes back to there was contemplation about putting MGM had a proposal about doing a casino down there, and Kathleen Wynne said, no, we're going to only build parks and different non-condos, casinos down there. Then it became this, and then it's going to become that. At some point, there has to get something that is interesting down there. There are a lot of traffic and transportation problems. The Ontario line is going to fix some of that access and egress. Hopefully there is a better flow of how people can get around with or without their cars. Getting to Budweiser Stage is, you're walking over the river and through the woods, it feels like, to get there, going to and from a show. And I go to a lot of concerts. When you get off at the GO train, Kim, you gotta have your running shoes on. You're doing a lot of walking back and forth to your seats. So, getting around down there, there's some interesting things. There's some cool things that could be down there and will be down there. There's some small venues, even on the X Place grounds. Now, I saw a concert a little while ago in a little venue down there. There's some very cool things that are happening. But getting in and around there, and I don't like to drive. I like to take transit, but getting down there is a pain. So they actually need to have a better coordination of that. The communications that have come out of this entire precinct for a long time are terrible. And then you've got everyone who's just like, don't build anything, just build parks. And while I like parks, there comes a point when we also have to be a big city that has some cool things too.
Yeah. I always bring this up, DeVille. I feel like you and I have talked about this before. Chicago, they found a way. Navy Pier, all that area in front of Lake Michigan, they found a way to blend an area that's got some retail, got the Ferris wheel, got some restaurants, some boat tours, with a lot of space. A lot of space if you want to run, walk, take your dog down there, take your family down there. We're just missing that balance, is what I would say.
And Navy Pier was actually built super fast, like a couple of years of time. It is actually one of those surprising things. Whenever I go into other cities, I look at, okay, how are they doing these very interesting things? Mm-hmm. How quickly can they do them? Somehow, Toronto, in its infinite Toronto-ness, we drag these things out. Every construction project, every development, every redevelopment, the Gardner crafting, this is taking far too long. And I don't know if it's too many fingers in the pie, but at some point, people get frustrated by all of that construction and all of the dithering and delays. And that gets really frustrating as a Torontonian.
Fingers in the pie. I think it's hands in the pie. It's arms in the pie in this city. Are you kidding? Yeah.
For me, I live at Yonge and Eglinton. So when you talk about construction frustration and, you're talking about a friend of mine lives in Liberty Village, and she said, oh, well, the Ontario line will be ready in 7 years. And I'm like, yeah, I live at Yonge and Eglinton. Talk to me about the Eglinton LRT that's still not built. And, there's this meme I've seen of things that were built faster than the Eglinton LRT, like the Roman Colosseum, like the CN Tower. And so, unfortunately, we don't do construction well. And so that's why I'm saying, just leave it alone. Finish out all the other projects first before you start something new.
Yeah. And even we're forecasting the Science Center. So when it closes abruptly on a Friday and you think there won't even be a Science Center for 3 years, DeVille, I'm like, that's the promise that it'll be there in 3 years. Maybe it's 4.5. It doesn't have to finish on time. Nothing does, it seems, as Kim says.
It's interesting because when David Miller announced that Toronto was going to host the under 18 men's World Soccer Championships, he said, we're going after this. BMO Field didn't exist. 9 months later from that announcement was opening day of BMO Field. Toronto can move when they want to, when there's a deadline. They just don't have a deadline right now, so it's a way longer process than it needs to be.
Yeah, listener pointing out Rogers Center, when it was Sky Dome opened in 89, the construction started in very late in 86, so they got that done in just over 2 years. And you think about the technology they don't have then that they do have now, there's not many excuses. I saw this and didn't think this was real, but someone we also have on the show a fair bit, Larissa Waller, took a photo of a billboard that it was in a bus terminal, a bus shelter, to cut or not to cut. Power device noise is not permitted after 7 p.m. and there's a photo of a lawnmower. They just went through this in London. Huge controversy because they told Londoners you can't use gas-powered tools. If it's a plug-in or a battery one, fine. So there's a green aspect to this as well. And they switched to 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Well, we're at 7 p.m. for lawnmowers, leaf blowers, weed whackers. DeVell, let me start with you. No. I feel like they're asking people to take transit and sit in traffic and sit in all this congestion, and then if we want to cut the lawn because somebody might be coming over at 8, we're not allowed to do it after 7. No, thank you.
That's ridiculous. I'm like, maybe make it after 9 o'clock or after 11 o'clock. But you know what? 7 o'clock is perfectly fine to be taking your lawnmower out. I mean, and I also think, I can't believe the city of Toronto spent money on an ad doing that.
They're broke, apparently. You got it. Exactly.
Exactly. And so for me, I think that's what angers me the most, is that they spent money on an ad. Somebody spent time creating this ad, and there's obviously some sort of conversation around this. And I think, you know what? Again, I live at Yonge and Eglinton. I've got two condos being constructed literally across the road from me, and they start before 7 a.m., and they should not. And so I think, having someone mow their lawn after 7 p.m., whatever. Go for it. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, and this all in the Kim, all in the shadow of finally, probably a few months late, 24/7 construction on the Gardiner is going to be allowed, so we can ease our construction tension in a lot shorter period of time. So it would seem. And then this gets spotted by Larissa, and I'm like, this. We're sucking and blowing at the same time sometimes in Toronto.
Oh, we absolutely are. But I can tell you, as somebody who sat in Toronto City Council chambers for the last nearly 20 years, the amount of times I have had to listen to the debate about the noise bylaw and people need to sleep and all the rest of that, but we can't have, lawn mowers or any amplified noise or fun after certain periods of time. It's actually quite remarkable, and people are passionate about this. And talking to councillors, their offices get flooded with noise complaints of, they've started lawn mowing or building the deck next door at 7 a.m. and why are they doing it, and all of these restrictions. And that becomes more and more challenging to build the construction and build all the other stuff. But there is an undercurrent of grumpiness that comes about noise in the city that is staggering to me. And as somebody who lives right downtown and has infinite construction in front of my condo, it is a noisy city, but people seem to think it's like a small town cottage out in the middle of nowhere.
It's so funny you say that, because they'll do a scene in a movie, mostly in New York, but in any American city, someone will yell down from their apartment building to the construction workers to keep it quiet, and they'll yell back and say, "No, you shut up. We don't do that in Toronto. We take their complaints right to the councillor. The councillor puts legislation together, and to DeVell's point, next thing you know, we got a billboard ad that tells people to stop using their lawnmowers after 6:59 in the evening."
Yeah, there's some definite challenges for this. And what was interesting, if you go to Larissa Waller's tweet about this, people have started putting in all the other City of Toronto bylaws. No aluminum bats at different baseball parks, and the no tobogganing down the hill, and all of these things that at some point we all need to kind of give our collective heads a shake.
Meddling bureaucracy, DeVell. Although sometimes I hear the garbage and recycling truck on a day off before 7 o'clock, and I'm like, oh no, they're here here way earlier than I thought, and that's the loudest thing. Nothing wakes a person up more than the truck rumbling down your street, and you know you haven't put your bins out yet. I'll put it that way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I live very close to Yonge Street, so it's worse because I hear not just the bins on garbage day, but the bins on a regular basis. So it's a good thing I'm an early riser because, yeah, you hear those bins and they are so loud. It's crazy.
Yeah. A listener points out, Kim, maybe no toilet flushing after 5:30 at night. And then maybe the DVP wouldn't flood. Whatever happens in that toilet after 5:30, you got to leave it till 6 a.m. the next morning. It's not a pleasant thought on a beautiful morning. Let's get to this Canadian Olympic Committee Canada soccer story. I'm aghast at this, obviously. I don't think it's the biggest thing in the world. I don't know if this is turning into a Ben Johnson Seoul Olympics type saga. But it's bad news. Here's the Canada Olympic Committee CEO David Shoemaker noting that from what they know, even already 2 days into looking into this, the gold medal the women's soccer team won in Tokyo is now being called into question.
Yes, there now appears to be information that could tarnish that Olympic performance in Tokyo. Makes me ill. It makes me sick to my stomach.
Just feels like the new now. Lance Armstrong, a cheater. Ben Armstrong, a cheater. The New England Patriots, the Houston Astros in baseball. But we didn't expect this, put it this way, Kim. And a lot of young kids, little girls, teenage girls, look up to this team, heroes that won this gold medal. And it's really bad news. Like I think it's a terrible story, and I can't help but be obsessed by where it's going to go. But I feel terrible for the innocent bystanders who are going to suffer from this, potentially lose their gold medals, maybe even if they didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, what actually staggers me about this story is more the reaction from the Canadian Olympic Committee. You know, you heard so much what I feel almost pearl clutching about this. Oh my gosh, if only we knew. Well, then what are you doing as the head of the Canadian Olympic Committee if you're not paying attention to these things? Were you just happy to take the sponsorship money for the last few years? You know, if there are problems, is this actually the job of the Canadian Olympic Committee to get off their high horses and actually go find out what's happening and not just take the good and then 3 years later say, oh, well, maybe sometimes we may have now known there was an issue. If you didn't know there was an issue, you're not watching your organization. If there isn't an issue, stop pearl clutching today.
Devel, how do you see this? It's bad news all around, and it's certainly overshadowed the early day or two of the Olympics with the opening ceremonies today.
It's really disappointing and disheartening. And, you know, I was reading in the Toronto Star this morning, you know, they feel that this might have affected the men's team as well, too. So, you know, and past championships of the women's and the men's team. So it's really just disappointing. You know, as a Canadian, it was nice to have something that we won. You know, it felt really good. And then it almost feels like this is being taken away from us. And yeah, it really doesn't feel good. And it's so disappointing. And I'm sure more will come out in the next few days. And it doesn't look like it's going in a good direction.
All right, we've got a few minutes left. I want to get to this endorsement from the Obamas towards Kamala Harris. I again, every day in U.S. politics for the last couple weeks, obviously, it feels like something is brand new. Here's, and by the way, set your cringe meter to a good 8.5 here out of 10. Here's Kamala Harris answering like a FaceTime message from the Obamas. We'll give you 30 seconds of this 55-second post that was put up overnight.
Kamala.
Hello. Hi.
Hey there.
Oh, hi. You're both together. Oh, it's good to hear you both.
I can't have this phone call without saying to my girl Kamala, I am proud of you. This is going to be historic.
We called to say Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office.
Oh, my goodness. Michelle, Brock, this means so much to me.
Devel, it's not exactly a Martin Scorsese production, but Harris had been looking for this endorsement, and I will tell you, I think she's had a much better week, and the Republicans and Trump and J.D. Vance have had a much worse week than people might have forecast a week ago. So there is momentum, but it's a long way to Election Day.
Yeah, I mean, for me, you said it was cringe. I love it. Like, I love everything about this. I know that it was staged, for sure. I think that Kamala Harris' team has done such a good job of putting all this together. What I'd love to do is be the fly on the wall to see the background and planning and how this is all put together, because clearly they knew before Biden stepped down on Sunday what was going on. It is so well planned and well timed. Every single day there's a different endorsement by somebody else. There's a maestro here, right, leading an orchestra. And that's what's gone on, which is, it's beautiful. And I'm here for it. I love every minute of it. And with respect to J.D. Vance, the more he talks, the more he shows people who he is. And this coming out to say that women who don't have kids, who have cats, can't be running a country is just, you know what? I just feel like J.D. Vance, just keep talking. Keep talking and show us the real you, because that is the most ridiculous statement I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if we're going to pound, Kim, if we're going to pound on Hillary Clinton for not recognizing with her basket of deplorables comment how many people she alienated 8 years later, you got J.D. Vance doing it potentially, and I don't think just women without kids were offended. Women with kids were offended. Who are you to tell me what to do? A, with my body, and B, what I should do in a family structure. Nobody liked that, even Republicans.
And they double down of maybe they shouldn't have as much say in democracy and votes, and that becomes really problematic. And look, people choose not to have children. Sometimes medically they can't have children. There's all sorts of reasons. But you also have, Times Person of the Year last year was Taylor Swift with a cat draped around her neck. Going after childless cat ladies is just encouraging the Swiftie hate, which is, I'm here for it. Kamala had a great week. The Obama endorsement was very much reminiscent of when Kamala called Joe and said, "Hey Joe, we did it." It's a flashback to that. It's a callback, as they like to say in movies, and it's very much in keeping with that, home folksy kind of way that Kamala presents. But they also had an ad that came out this week that has Beyonce Knowles and Kendrick Lamar's Freedom song, which is a thumper of a song, underpinning this. So she's got the Swiftie, she's got the Beyonce folks, these touch points in culture. And then they've had last night, 164,000 women joined a Zoom call. They raised $2 million in 90 minutes. These are the kinds of things that they're pulling. And on J.D. Vance, that man is making Sarah Palin look like the smartest person in the Republican Party.
Well, and listen, I have to take issue with you even remotely suggesting Beyonce and Kendrick Lamar are more culturally relevant than Kid Rock and Hulk Hogan. Like, how dare you? I don't even have time to put you in your place for that.
Look, she clearly has taken sides in the Kendrick versus Drake beef right now, and frankly, I'm kind of here for it.
I don't know who Drake's he hasn't won a lot of wagers lately. He's bet on the Edmonton Oilers and a lot of teams that didn't end up coming through. So I don't know where his money's headed this November.
Flood mitigation in his giant house in the Bridle Path is where his money's going now.
It's been a rough few months. I loved having both of you on. Thanks so much for the time.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Toronto Today podcast. We drop the highlights of The Daily Show every weekday morning at 11 a.m. Don't forget, you can hear the entire show on the radio, at home, on your smart speaker. Ask Alexa or say, "Hey, Google, play 640 Toronto or Toronto Today." You can hear us on between 5:30 and 9 weekdays on 640 Toronto. Have a great day.
On a night cold enough to freeze your bones, a prospector searching for a legendary cursed gold mine vanishes without a trace. I'm Crew Williams, the host of Dead Man's Curse. This season, we retrace the steps of fortune seekers looking for a mother lode worth billions who never came back. So come join our quest. Search for and follow Dead Man's Cursed Volcanic Gold on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and wherever you find your favorite podcasts.